During a Senate Banking Committee hearing on Thursday, Senator Bob Menendez questioned several top bank CEOs. Menendez's line of questioning focused specifically on overdraft fees. He pointed out that almost 60% of all overdraft fees in 2020 were paid by low to moderate income households, 25% of which were Latino households. Menendez asked the officials if they would commit to ending overdraft fees completely. They did not agree to the senator's request, with Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan saying eliminating overdraft fees would not be a good result. Menendez expressed his frustration, saying overdraft fees are one of the many reasons why Americans are hesitant to open bank accounts.
Senator Menendez of New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A 2021 report by the Financial Health Network found that nearly 60% of all overdraft fees in 2020 were paid by low and moderate income households, and about 25% were paid by Latino households specifically. Mr. Moynihan, Mr. Scharf, Mr. Diamond, your banks each charged over $1 billion in overdraft fees last year. And while each of your banks have recently reduced or modified the fees, your customers, particularly your low-income and minority customers, are still at risk of incurring an overdraft fee every time they make a payment from one of your banks. So can you commit to us today that before we see you next year, your institutions will fully eliminate overdraft fees?
Senator, we have an account that has no overdraft fees available for our customers, and we believe that the customer should have a choice of the way they want their services and the way they want to pay for them at the company.
Senator, if you look at the last quarter call report, you'll see that the overdraft fees in our company dropped 66% from last year. Recently, we announced that they'll drop further because during that quarter we made some of these changes. We don't believe the full elimination of them is actually a good result, but the amount of overdraft fees we'll collect, we've told people, will be down 90%. That is a 12 to 13-year commitment that we've been able to live up to because we're big and because we have the operating costs and because we're allowed to do mergers and put together a great franchise. It allows us to pass those benefits through the customers. And so I think eliminating, has attributes which are different than people say, which the rent payment could be rejected, but we've reduced the cost to $10 on those instances. We also have 4 million people in a no overdraft account, and it opens 25, 30% of all the new accounts. So I think you have to look at this.
That requires certain standards to have a no overdraft.
No, $5 a month. I mean, anybody can open it. It has an ID, yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yeah, we also offer it. We think it's the right thing to do. 23% opt-in, so it isn't like everyone wants it, but those who want it, sometimes it's abused, but there's two sides to this which are very critical. First of all, I have faith in the American public to make their own choices. When people use it, remember there are a lot of occasions where if it's not used, okay, they will be charged a higher fee on the other side. That includes parking tickets, rent, mortgages, or you need pharmacies at the immediately and you get bounced. So people want it for those reasons, and it can often reduce the cost on the other side and stop them from going to payday lenders. So that's why we're trying to navigate this. I do agree with the concept. It does get overused, and we try to do things like financial counseling and on occasion just turn it off for someone because we think they just use it too much.
I have faith in the American people as you do, Mr. Diamond. I don't think that their choices is to end up in overdrafts. Your banks made $64 billion collectively last quarter, $64 billion. So it's clear to me that there's no reasonable explanation to continue to charge overdraft fees on working families. You just had a conversation with my colleague and friend, Senator Scott. One of the reasons so many Americans are still hesitant to enter the formal financial system is this issue. I hope you'll give more consideration to how you deal with this overdraft issue. I think it inured to everybody's benefit. I've heard story after story from New Jersey constituents who have fallen victim to scams and fraud on Zelle, and in many instances, the banks have denied their customers relief. That's why in July, I led a letter with some of my colleagues to 7 of the banks that created and jointly owned Zelle, which includes most of you. I found several of your responses really inadequate. In particular, the responses from J.P. Morgan Chase and PNC did not address the fundamental questions we asked regarding the number of frauds and scams reported by your customers, as well as information regarding refunds and referrals to law enforcement. So, Mr. Diamond and Mr. Demchek, will you commit to making the information we asked available to me and my staff, as your other colleagues have?
Absolutely, and I'm sorry we didn't meet it the first time, and
Yes, the same. I'm sorry we didn't send it in the
I
first instance.
appreciate it, because that information helps us as we're trying to figure out that consumers are slipping through the cracks of Regulation E, and detailed information will help us figure out what we do with it. Finally, Mr. Scharf, in March, Bloomberg reported that Wells Fargo disproportionately rejected refinancing applications from African American and Hispanic homeowners. You and I had an opportunity to, I appreciate your visit. One of the things that you told me in response to my questions was this was partially due to the fact that Wells encourages more minority borrowers to go through the full application process, while some of your competitors turn them away at an earlier stage. Is that correct?
Just one clarification is we encourage all borrowers, not just minority borrowers.
Okay, but that would include the whole universe of minority borrowers, therefore. Why don't the rest of you do the same? Encourage them to go through the full application process? Okay, the silence is
No,
gone.
to be fair, I just don't know if we do or don't, but we will look at that.
Would you respond to us for the record, please? Because, look, the Latino community is $2 trillion domestic marketplace impact already, will grow exponentially, but it needs to be treated fairly in the process. And Ms. Fraser, it's good to see you, because this is about the only diversity we have in this industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Menendez.